He took 7 bullets to save an alien girl, but what woke beside him wasn't human. The city was burning. Smoke climbed high into the black sky. The sound of explosions echoed through the ruins. Once, this place was full of life. Now it was just fire, ash, and silence. Sergeant Mason Hawley moved through the broken streets with his rifle ready. His armor was cracked, his face covered with dirt and blood. But he kept walking, step by step. He was one of the few soldiers left in the human resistance. And tonight, he had only one mission: find survivors and get them to safety before we begin. The voice of the storyteller whispered softly, "If you love stories of courage, mystery, and alien worlds, don't forget to subscribe to this channel. It helps us bring you more amazing HFY sci-fi stories." Now, back to Mason's world, where one decision would change everything. The wind howled through the shattered buildings. Lights flickered in the distance. Mason's boots crushed broken glass as he walked. He scanned every corner carefully. He had seen too many of his team die already. He didn't want to see any more. Suddenly, a sound reached him. It was faint, almost like singing, but it wasn't human. It was too soft, too strange, too beautiful. Mason froze, aiming his rifle toward the sound. It came from under a collapsed structure nearby. He slowly moved closer. There, under pieces of metal and concrete, he saw something glowing. It was a girl. No, not a girl. Her skin shimmered with a pale blue light. Her silver hair was tangled and covered in dust. Her eyes opened weakly. Glowing like moonlight, she wasn't human. For a moment, Mason hesitated. His orders were clear. Aliens were the enemy. But she didn't look like a soldier. She looked scared, hurt, and trapped. Then, from the shadows behind them, a loud roar echoed through the ruins. Mason turned instantly from the smoke. A huge alien beast emerged. Its body was armored, its claws glowing with red light. It was hunting, and it had found them. The alien girl screamed. Mason didn't think. He acted. He ran toward her, dropping his rifle and pulling at the heavy debris. The metal burned his hands, but he didn't stop. "Come on, move," he shouted, his voice echoing through the ruins. Finally, the metal gave way. He grabbed her hand and pulled her free just as the beast charged. He raised his rifle and fired. The bullets hit the creature, but barely slowed it. He threw a grenade and pulled the alien girl behind a broken wall. The explosion tore through the air. Mason was thrown backward, pain shooting through his chest. He felt heat, pain, and blood. He had been hit, not once, not twice. He looked down and saw red spreading fast. 7 bullet holes burned across his chest armor. His vision blurred. The alien girl crawled toward him, her face full of fear. She placed her glowing hand on his chest. He wanted to tell her to run, but before he could speak, a strange warmth filled his body. The pain started to fade. He felt energy flow through his veins like fire and light. He looked into her eyes. She was whispering something in her own language. He didn't understand the words, but he understood the feeling. Then everything went dark. He fell into silence, into nothing. When Mason opened his eyes again, the world was different. The air was warm, not cold. The sky above him was dark and full of light veins like glowing roots. He blinked and tried to move, but something heavy pressed against him. He looked up and froze. A giant figure was kneeling over him. Her body shimmered with the same pale blue light. Her silver eyes glowed with calm strength. It was the same alien girl, but she wasn't small anymore. She was taller, stronger, radiant, almost godlike. She looked down at him, her face soft with relief. "You are alive," she said slowly. Her voice was smooth, strange, but full of emotion. Mason tried to sit up, but his muscles screamed in pain. What happened? He asked weakly. Her eyes glowed brighter. You were dying, she said. So I gave you my energy. He looked at his chest. The wounds were gone. Only glowing marks remained, thin lines of light running across his skin. He touched them, feeling warmth beneath his fingers. What are you? He whispered. She smiled gently. My name is Alira, she said. And you saved me. Mason blinked, confused. I saved you? He said. She nodded. Yes, and now our lives are joined. He didn't know what that meant. But before he could ask, a deep rumble echoed through the tunnels around them. Alira's face turned serious. They are coming, she said quietly. The ones who tried to kill me. Mason tried to stand. His body still weak, but healing fast. He picked up his broken rifle and took a deep breath. Then we'll face them together, he said. Alira's silver eyes widened slightly. No one had ever said that to her before. And for the first time in her life, she smiled. The light flickered in the dark tunnel. Above them, alien shadows moved closer. The story of Mason Ha-La, the human who defied death to save an alien, had only just begun. The dim light flickered around Mason as his vision returned. His breathing was uneven, his hands trembling. He could feel the strange energy still flowing inside him. Every heartbeat pulsed with a faint glow beneath his skin. The alien girl, Alira, knelt beside him, watching with a quiet, unreadable look. You should not move yet, she said softly. Her voice echoed slightly, calm but firm. You are too close to death. Your body is still learning the bond. Mason frowned, confusion swirling in his head. Bond? What bond? He asked, his voice weak. Alira lowered her head for a moment, then looked back at him. When I healed you? Our energies connected, human and mine, she said. Your life now depends on my energy, and mine depends on yours. Mason blinked, still trying to process her words. You mean we're linked? She nodded slowly. Yes, your pain becomes mine, and my strength flows through you. He tried to laugh, but it came out more like a cough. Well, that sounds crazy, he muttered. Alira tilted her head, not understanding the word, but sensing his disbelief. To my people, this is forbidden, she said. We do not bond with humans, not ever. Mason gave a tired smile. Guess you broke a rule then. Her lips curved slightly. Not quite a smile, but close, around them. The underground chamber trembled again. Dust fell from the ceiling, and the faint roar of engines echoed from far above. Mason reached for his rifle, checking the charge. Empty, he sighed. Figures. Alira placed her hand over the weapon. A faint light shimmered through her palm, and the rifle powered up again. Mason blinked in surprise. You just charged my gun with magic? Not magic, she said. Energy, life force. The sound of movement drew their attention. Footsteps, slow but heavy, echoed through the tunnel ahead. Alira's face turned sharp, her silver eyes glowing brighter. They found us, she whispered. Mason stood, ignoring the ache in his chest. How many? Too many, she said, her voice tight. My brother's hunters, they do not stop until I am dead. Mason looked around for cover. The chamber opened into a long corridor lit by broken alien lights. Far ahead, red glows flickered. Soldiers. Armored, approaching fast, he looked at Alira. You can fight? Her expression changed, calm turning into fierce determination. I was born to, she said. Then the fight began. Energy blasts cut through the darkness. Burning holes in the walls, Mason dropped to one knee and fired. His shots fast and precise. Alira moved like light itself, her body glowing brighter as she raised her hand. A wave of silver energy burst forward, throwing enemies back like rag dolls. The ground shook from the force. Mason had never seen anything like it. But every time he fired or took a hit, Alira flinched, pain flashing across her face. He realized their bond worked both ways. If he was hurt, she suffered. He shouted, "Stay back." "I'll handle this side." She shook her head. "No, if you fall." "I fall." One of the hunters leapt from the ceiling, landing behind Mason before he could react. Claws tore across his armor. He cried out. Falling to one knee, instantly, Alira screamed, her light flickering violently. She blasted the creature into dust. Her body trembling, Mason forced himself to stand. Blood dripping down his arm. "Okay, that hurts," he muttered. Alira's breathing was uneven, her hands glowing brighter than ever. "You must not be harmed," she said, her voice shaking. "Your pain weakens me." Together they fought through the tunnel. Step by step, Mason's aim steady, her light slicing through the enemy ranks. When the last soldier fell, silence returned, broken only by their heavy breaths. Mason leaned against the wall, exhausted. That was insane, he said between breaths. Alira's glow dimmed slightly, her body trembling from energy loss. "You fight without fear," she whispered. "Even knowing death waits." Mason smiled faintly. "I don't have much choice, do I?" They moved deeper underground, following a strange humming sound. The tunnel opened into a massive chamber filled with old machinery. Alien symbols glowed faintly on the walls. But what caught Mason's attention was something else. A human flag, torn and half buried in dust. He stepped closer, his heart tightening. "This is," he said quietly, "a human outpost." Alira looked around, her eyes scanning the markings. "It should not be here," she said softly. "This is ancient Dominion ground." Mason crouched beside a metal panel with a faded number on it. USSDAWN09. His chest tightened. He remembered the name. That was one of the first bases to fall, years ago. "Maybe we're not the first ones down here," he said. Alira touched one of the glowing walls. The light reacted to her touch, shifting colors and revealing more symbols, some alien, some human. "It feels wrong," she whispered, "like someone tried to mix two worlds." Mason nodded. Maybe that's what they were doing, experiments. Her face turned cold. "My people would never allow this," she said. "If they discover we are here together." "They already know," Mason interrupted. He pointed to a flashing red sensor high on the wall. Alira's eyes widened. "They tracked us." A loud alarm began to echo through the tunnels. Red lights bathed the chamber in warning. Alira grabbed Mason's hand, pulling him toward a dark passage. "We must go now," she said. Mason followed, adrenaline pumping again. Behind them, metal doors slid open as new figures poured into the room. Dozens of armored hunters, their weapons glowing blood red. Alira looked back once. Her silver eyes met Mason's, calm but burning with determination. "This time," she said quietly, "we fight not to survive, but to be remembered." And with that, they vanished into the darkness as explosions shook the ancient tunnels. The tunnels grew narrower as Mason and Alira ran. Their footsteps echoed against the stone. Behind them, the sound of metal boots grew louder. The hunters were not giving up. They moved like shadows, silent but unstoppable. Mason's chest burned as he ran. His human body was still weak from the earlier fight, but Alira's energy pulsed inside him. Every heartbeat felt heavier, like carrying someone else's soul. He looked at her. The faint glow around her skin dimmed and brightened with each breath. She was trying to stay strong, but the bond was draining them both. "How far do these tunnels go?" he asked, panting. Alira's silver eyes flicked forward. "Far enough to lose them," she said. Though her voice trembled slightly, her steps were steady. But Mason could see the pain behind her calm face. She was hurting too. She didn't show it, but he felt it. a deep ache under his ribs that wasn't his. They turned a sharp corner and entered a large underground chamber. The air smelled of metal and ancient oil. Giant machines, broken and rusted, stood like forgotten giants. Blue lights blinked faintly across the walls. Still alive after decades, Elira stopped and raised her hand. Her energy flickered, scanning the air. "They are close," she said quietly. "But something else is here," before Mason could ask. The lights flickered again, then died completely. Darkness swallowed them whole. A deep hum started from somewhere below. It grew louder, vibrating through the ground. Mason gripped his rifle tight, his heart racing. "What is that sound?" Elira didn't answer. Her eyes glowed faintly, and her face went pale. "This place is not empty," she whispered. "It's a grave." A metallic noise echoed to their left, like armor scraping stone. Mason turned quickly, flashlight cutting through the dark. Nothing. Then another sound behind them. Closer this time. He spun around. Finger on the trigger. Still nothing. The air felt heavier now. Pressing against his chest, Elira stepped beside him, her body glowing faintly again. "The hunters are not alone," she said softly. "They woke something." Suddenly, a figure dropped from the ceiling. It wasn't a soldier. It was huge, twisted, a fusion of metal and flesh. A Dominion experiment long forgotten. It roared, the sound shaking dust from the ceiling. Mason fired, bullets sparking off its armor. Elira threw out her hand and released a blast of silver energy. The monster staggered, but didn't fall. It charged, claws smashing into the floor where Mason had stood moments earlier. He rolled aside, shouting, "What is that thing?" "An echo," Elira replied, her voice tight. "A weapon built from the dead." The creature swung again, catching Mason's shoulder. He cried out, pain flaring through him. At the same moment, Elira gasped, her own shoulder bleeding from a wound that wasn't there. Their bond was reflecting the pain. "Mason, stop fighting," she said. "You are hurting both of us." He gritted his teeth. "Then tell me how to stop it." "Together," she said, stepping forward. "We fight as one." She grabbed his wrist, her glow spreading to his weapon. The rifle shimmered with light, fusing with her energy. Mason felt her strength pour into him, his heartbeat matching hers. They aimed together, breath in perfect rhythm. "Now," Elira said. They fired as one, a beam of silver fire bursting from the rifle. The creature screamed, collapsing in a storm of light and dust. The echo faded, leaving only silence. Mason dropped to one knee, breathing hard. The glowing marks across his skin pulsed brighter than before. Elira knelt beside him, touching his shoulder gently. "You are changing," she said softly. He looked down at his hands. The veins beneath his skin shimmered faintly blue. "What did you do to me?" he asked, her eyes softened. "Not what I did. What you became." Before he could speak again, a familiar sound filled the chamber. The hunters had arrived. Dozens of them, weapons glowing red in the dark. They surrounded the room from every direction. Elira stood tall, her light flaring again despite her exhaustion. Mason raised his rifle, ready to fight. One of the soldiers stepped forward, his armor marked with a golden crest. He spoke in a deep, harsh tone. "Princess Elira," he said, "your brother demands your return." Mason blinked. "Brother?" Elira's jaw tightened, her light flickering with anger. "My brother commands the Dominion fleet," she said bitterly. "He destroyed your cities." The lead soldier raised his weapon. "You will come with us, or the human dies." Mason stepped in front of her, his voice low and steady. "Over my dead body," he said. The soldier smirked. "That can be arranged." In the same instant, a dozen red beams fired. Mason pushed Elira down as energy bolts filled the room. He fired back, every shot glowing with her power. Walls exploded, sparks rained from the ceiling. Alira screamed, summoning a wall of silver light to shield them. The energy collided, blue against red, creating a blinding storm of light. When the light faded, the chamber was half collapsed. Mason coughed, pushing himself up. Alira stood weakly beside him. Her armor cracked, her eyes glowing dimly. "They won't stop," he said. "No," she whispered. "But neither will we." They ran toward a narrow passage at the edge of the chamber. Behind them, the Dominion soldiers regrouped. Shouting orders, the ground shook. Part of the ceiling gave way, sealing the path behind them. Dust filled the air. Alira turned, eyes wide. "Mason," she said, her voice urgent. "There's another presence down here." "What do you mean?" "Something older than both our races," she whispered. "It's watching us." Mason felt it too. A cold pulse through the ground, like a heartbeat coming from deep below. He raised his rifle again, his hands shaking slightly. "Whatever it is," he said, "we're not stopping." Alira nodded, her silver eyes narrowing. "Then we go deeper," she said, "and hope the dark doesn't remember our names," as they disappeared into the shadows. The red eyes of the hunters glowed through the dust, and far beneath the tunnels, something ancient opened its eyes for the first time in centuries. The war between worlds was no longer just between human and alien. Something older had awakened, and it had been waiting for them. The tunnel led them into darkness, so deep that even Alira's glow could not reach the walls. The air was cold and heavy, full of the smell of metal and dust. Each step echoed like a heartbeat in a sleeping giant. Mason kept his rifle ready, the light on the barrel flickering weakly. Alira walked beside him, her movements slow but graceful. She was tired, and so was he, but neither wanted to stop. For a long time, neither of them spoke. Their bond had grown stronger with every fight. He could feel her thoughts now, not clearly, but as whispers under his skin, fear, guilt, and something else. Something that felt almost like sadness. Finally, Mason broke the silence. "You said your brother commands the Dominion," he said. "Why does he want you dead?" Alira's expression tightened. "He wants control," she said softly. "I was the heir once. But I saw what our empire was doing." She looked at the floor, her voice quieter. "We conquered your world not for survival, but for pride." Mason clenched his fists. "My people died for your pride?" Alira's eyes dimmed. "I tried to stop him. They called me traitor." Her words hung in the air like smoke. The tunnel opened suddenly into a vast chamber. Mason froze, his breath catching in his throat. Before them stood a massive steel door covered in dust. Across the surface were human symbols, the letters almost hidden beneath layers of grime. He reached out, wiping them clean. The words read, "Project Dawn, Human Research Command." Alira tilted her head, confusion flickering in her silver eyes. "This is your kind's design," she said. Mason nodded slowly. "Yeah, it's military. But this place was supposed to be lost decades ago." He pressed his hand against a small scanner beside the door. To his surprise, it blinked green. The lock released with a deep hiss. The door slid open, and light spilled out from inside, cold, sterile light. Still working after all this time? They stepped inside carefully. Rows of broken monitors lined the walls. Tables covered with old data pads and strange glass tubes filled the room. The air smelled of oil, electricity, and decay. Mason picked up a cracked file tablet and brushed away the dust. The screen flickered to life, showing human text. He read aloud slowly. "Subject compatibility test. Phase 3, human genome cross-linked with Dominion DNA." Alira's face went pale. "They tried to merge our species," she whispered. Mason scrolled through more entries. Each file showed images, Human soldiers connected to glowing alien cores. Some alive, most not. This is impossible, Mason said. We never had this kind of tech. Alira looked at him. Her expression filled with something between anger and pity. You did, she said. But you weren't ready. They moved deeper into the lab. In the center stood a single chamber, tall and glass, filled with dim blue mist. Inside lay a human body, still and silent. Mason approached slowly. He wiped the frost from the glass and froze. The face inside was his own. For a long moment, he couldn't breathe. His reflection, no, a copy, floated inside that chamber. Alira stepped closer, studying the markings along the machine. This is you, she whispered. But not the same. Mason's voice shook. What do you mean? The one who sleeps here was made, she said. You were born later from him. He stepped back, dizzy. Are you saying I'm a clone? Alira nodded slowly. Or maybe something beyond that, she said softly. You were created to bond with me, Mason's heart pounded. The truth hit him like a storm. All his missions, his survival, his pain, all planned. He was not a random soldier. He was part of a project designed to merge human strength with alien power. He turned away, his fists clenched. I was never supposed to be human, he whispered. Alira placed her hand on his shoulder. You are more human than anyone I have met, she said gently. You chose mercy when you could have chosen hate. Her voice was soft but strong. And that is something no experiment can create. Before he could answer, the lights flickered again, then turned red. A loud mechanical alarm echoed through the chamber. A deep voice, human but distorted, spoke from hidden speakers. Unauthorized entry detected. Containment breach. Activate security protocol. Mason raised his weapon. Alira looked around, her energy flaring bright again. From the walls, panels opened and mechanical shapes stepped out. Tall. Skeletal machines with glowing eyes. Automated guards left behind by humans decades ago. They'll see you as a threat, Mason said. They'll see both of us as one, Alira replied grimly. The machines aimed their weapons, red lights blinking. The first blast hit the floor near them. Exploding dust into the air, Mason fired back. Bullets sparking off metal skulls, Alira raised her hand, releasing waves of silver light that tore through the machines like lightning. Sparks filled the air, smoke rising from burning wires. The noise was deafening. Then, from the back of the room, one machine remained standing. It was different, larger, covered in both human and alien armor. A hybrid, like the one Mason had seen before. It looked at him and spoke in a distorted human voice. Subject 09, return to containment. Mason froze. The machine recognized him. Alira stepped in front of him, her energy swirling protectively. He belongs to no one, she said. The machine's eyes turned red. And both of you will be erased, it charged forward. Metal claws slashing through the air, Mason dove aside while Alira blocked the blow with her light. The impact shook the entire chamber. Sparks flew, and the floor cracked beneath them. Mason fired again and again, each bullet glowing brighter from her energy. Finally, the machine stumbled. Its chest glowing red, Alira shouted, Now! Mason aimed for the core and fired. The explosion ripped through the lab, throwing them both backward. When the smoke cleared, the machine lay in pieces. The alarms still screamed around them. Mason pulled himself up, coughing. Alira helped him to his feet, her eyes filled with determination. They will come for us now, she said. He nodded, gripping his rifle. Then we find out who made me, he said, and why. Alira looked toward a sealed door at the end of the chamber. Symbols glowed faintly on its surface. Half human, half alien. That door leads deeper, she said. Mason met her gaze. Then that's where we go, behind them. Sparks rained from the ceiling. The project that had begun decades ago was awake again. And its final experiment, the bond between man and alien, was alive and walking. The old research doors burst open with a sound like thunder. Dust and smoke rolled through the air as Mason and Alira stepped into the light for the first time in days. Above them, the ruins of the city stretched endlessly. Towers bent and broken, fire glowing in the distance. The sky was no longer blue. It was red, glowing with the silent fire of orbiting ships. Mason stopped for a moment, breathing in the open air. It smelled like ash and iron. He looked at Alira, her silver glow faint under the pale sunlight. "This is what's left of Earth," he said quietly. She nodded, guilt shadowing her face. "My people did this," she whispered, "and I could not stop them." They moved carefully through the ruins. Broken machines lay everywhere, pieces of old battles half buried in the ground. Mason's boots crushed burned glass and bone. He scanned the streets for movement. Somewhere far away, engines roared in the clouds. The Dominion was still here. Watching, Alira stopped near a collapsed bridge. She looked up at the sky, her eyes narrowing. "They know I live," she said softly. "How?" Mason asked. "When I healed you." "I sent a signal through the bond," she replied. "They felt my energy. They will come for me." Mason tightened his grip on his weapon. "Then we'll be ready," he said. She looked at him for a long moment, then smiled faintly. "Humans," she whispered. "You always say that before the impossible." They crossed the bridge slowly. Below it, rivers of melted metal flowed like liquid fire. The air shimmered with heat. Mason wiped sweat from his forehead. He could feel his strength growing again, but with it came strange pulses of light under his skin. Alira noticed it, her eyes full of worry. "The bond is changing you faster," she said. "Maybe it's helping," he replied. "Maybe," she said quietly. "Or maybe it's rewriting what you are." Before Mason could answer, the ground trembled. A shadow moved over them, large, heavy, mechanical. A Dominion dropship descended from the burning clouds. Red symbols glowed on its hull, the same crest that marked the hunters before. Alira's eyes widened. "My brother," she whispered. The ship landed hard, dust and flames scattering through the street. Dozens of armored soldiers stepped out, weapons raised, and behind them came a figure taller than all the rest. His armor black and gold, his face hidden behind a glowing mask. "Princess Alira," the voice boomed through the ruined air. "You hide among the creatures you once ruled over." Alira's expression turned cold. "Brother," she said, "you came yourself." The figure's mask tilted slightly. "I came to end this disgrace," he said. "You broke our law, and for that, both you and your human toy will die." Mason stepped forward. "Rifle ready." "She's not your enemy," he said. The Dominion soldiers raised their weapons instantly. Alira extended her hand slightly, her voice calm but sharp. "Stand down, Kale," she said. "You destroy worlds and call it order. But you have no right to command me." Her brother laughed, the sound deep and cruel. "You think I wanted this war?" He said, "It began the moment humans looked at the stars and thought they belonged there." Without another word, the soldiers opened fire. Beams of red energy filled the air, cutting through metal and stone. Mason dove behind wreckage. Firing back, Alira raised both hands. Her body glowing with silver light, a barrier formed around them. Shimmering like liquid glass, each impact cracked it, shaking the ground beneath their feet. Mason reloaded and shouted, "We can't hold this forever." "I know," she said, her voice strained, "but if I release more energy, they will sense the full bond." "Let them!" He yelled, "We end this here." She looked at him, something fierce and wild in her eyes. Then she nodded once. "Then hold nothing back," she said. The silver light burst outward, blinding the soldiers. Mason felt a surge of energy run through his body. His rifle hummed with power. He fired, each shot exploding like a comet. Alira moved beside him, her light slicing through the air like a blade. Soldiers fell, ships burned, the ground cracked beneath their power. Cale raised his hand, deflecting a blast with his armor. "You think you can fight me?" He roared. Alira's voice echoed through the smoke. "I don't need to fight you," she said. "He will." Mason stepped out from the flames, his body glowing brighter now. His eyes faintly blue like hers. He aimed straight at Cale. "You destroyed my world," he said, "and you are not even of it," Cale replied coldly. Mason hesitated. "What did you say?" Cale laughed, a dark, hollow sound. "Did you really think you were born human? You are a weapon, built by both our kinds." The words hit like a hammer. Alira looked away, pain flashing across her face. "Mason, don't listen to him," she said. But Cale stepped closer, his mask glowing red. "She knows it's true," he said. "You are the last soldier of Project Dawn, the bridge between species. The proof that we can merge." Mason's mind spun, his heart racing, everything around him blurred. The light, the smoke, the fire. Alira shouted his name. But her voice felt far away. The bond inside him flared violently. Blue and silver energy burst from his chest. The shockwave threw Cale and his soldiers backward. Buildings cracked and fire rained from the sky. Alira ran to him, grabbing his arms. "Mason, stop!" She shouted. "You'll destroy yourself." He gritted his teeth, trying to control it, but the energy wouldn't stop. It poured out of him like a storm. The ground split open, releasing a column of blinding light that tore through the clouds. The Dominion ships in the sky shook and fell from orbit. Cale looked up, his voice full of shock. "No. This power, it's impossible." Mason fell to his knees. Struggling to breathe, Alira knelt beside him, her face full of tears and light. "Listen to me," she said. "You are not a weapon. You are alive. Fight it." He tried. But the light consumed everything. For a moment, the sky turned white. Then darkness followed, heavy and silent. When Mason opened his eyes, the world had changed again. He was lying in the ruins, his armor cracked, smoke rising from the ground. The city was silent, the Dominion ships gone. Beside him, Alira was still, her glow faint and fading. He reached for her hand. "Alira," he whispered, her eyes opened slowly, weak but alive. "You stopped it," she said softly. He shook his head. "No, you did." In the distance, thunder rolled again, not from the sky, but from beneath the earth. Something deep below had awakened when Mason's power erupted. A sound like a heartbeat echoed through the ground. Slow, powerful, ancient, Alira looked toward the horizon, her voice trembling. "Mason," she said. "We didn't end the war." He frowned. "What do you mean?" She turned to him, her silver eyes wide with fear. "We woke something older," she said, "something that was never meant to wake again." The wind howled through the burning city, carrying with it the sound of engines rising once more. The war for Earth was far from over, and now something far greater was watching from the dark. Mason drifted somewhere between light and shadow. He felt weightless, lost inside a storm of glowing energy. Flashes of memory burst around him. Alira's face, Cale's voice, the burning sky, then silence swallowed everything. When he finally opened his eyes, the world was white. Not sky, not snow, but light itself. He lay inside a metal pod filled with soft mist. Wires ran from his chest, glowing faintly blue. He tried to move, but pain shot through every nerve. The walls hummed with strange symbols that pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat. He realized he was back inside the old underground facility. But it looked different now. Awake, alive. Machines moved on their own, scanning him, measuring his pulse. The voice of an ancient computer echoed around the chamber. Subject 09, synchronization complete. Mason clenched his teeth. "I'm done being your experiment," he growled. He ripped the wires out of his body. Light spilling from each wound, but healing instantly. He stumbled out of the pod, his feet hitting cold steel. Every movement felt strange, faster, sharper. He looked at his reflection in a cracked mirror on the wall. His eyes glowed pale blue. Faint marks of silver light ran across his neck and shoulders. He wasn't just human anymore. He was something in between. Then he remembered Alira. He turned, scanning the room. "Where is she?" He shouted. The computer responded in its hollow tone. "Specimen Alira, transferred to Dominion command vessel. Orbit sector Theta." Mason's heart slammed against his ribs. Kale had taken her. He slammed his hand against the console. The screen flickered, showing a live feed of space. Dominion ships hovering above Earth's ruins. One ship larger than the rest, surrounded by glowing rings of energy. Kale's flagship. Mason felt rage boil inside him. "She saved me," he whispered. "And I'm not letting her die for it." The chamber shook suddenly, alarms flaring red again. Something deep below roared, a deep mechanical pulse like the heartbeat of a god. The walls cracked, vents hissing smoke. The same ancient sound they had felt before was back. Stronger than ever, Mason steadied himself. He could feel the pulse, not just in the ground, but in his chest. The bond between him and Alira was alive, stretching across the sky, calling to him. He reached for his rifle, but the weapon hummed with strange energy. It fused to his arm like metal to magnet, responding to his thoughts. Blue light shimmered around his fingers. He didn't need bullets anymore. The weapon obeyed his will. He smiled faintly, the first real smile since the war began. "Guess I upgraded," he muttered. Far above, aboard the Dominion ship, Alira hung in chains of light. Her brother Kale stood before her, armor gleaming. His mask cracked from their last battle. "You gave our gift to a human," he said coldly. "You created a monster." Alira lifted her head weakly, her voice soft but steady. "I created hope." Kale struck the wall beside her, the sound shaking the chamber. "Hope is a lie," he hissed. "And soon your bond will end. When he dies, so will you." She closed her eyes, feeling Mason's presence somewhere below. Through the bond, she sensed his heartbeat. Stronger, faster, burning like a star. "He's coming," she whispered. Kale laughed. "Then let him. I want to see what your creature can do." Back on the surface, Mason climbed through the ruins toward a broken launch bay. Inside, he found the remains of a small human fighter. The engines were dead, but the energy in his hands pulsed brighter as he touched them. Circuits reignited, panels flickered to life. The ship trembled, alive again. He stepped inside the cockpit, the system syncing to his pulse. "All right, Alira," he said quietly. "Hold on," the engines roared, lifting the craft through the burning clouds. As he broke through the atmosphere, the stars spread out before him. The Dominion fleet shimmered like a ring of fire around Earth. Dozens of ships, armed and waiting. His ship rattled as warning lights blinked red. He was alone against an army. But the bond pulsed again. Alira's heartbeat, faint but steady, guiding him, he whispered to the void. "You're not dying today." Lasers fired as Dominion fighters detected him. Mason rolled the ship, energy flaring from his hands into the controls. Blue light surrounded the fighter. Turning it into a streak of lightning, he weaved through enemy fire, blasting ships apart with bursts of energy It came from his own body. Each explosion echoed through space like thunder. The sky burned again, brighter than before. He broke through the enemy line, heading straight for Kale's flagship. The massive vessel loomed before him, its hull covered in symbols of power and war. Mason aimed directly for the hangar bay. "Sorry, Kale," he muttered. "You're getting company." He slammed the controls forward, crashing through the shield barrier in a blaze of blue fire. The ship hit the deck hard, metal screaming as it slid to a stop. Mason stepped out through smoke and sparks, his body glowing with pulsing light. Dominion guards rushed in, shouting in their alien tongue. He raised his hand. Energy exploded outward, throwing them across the hangar. He moved like a storm through the corridors. Every door he passed melted from the heat of his energy. He could feel Illyra's heartbeat growing stronger. Guiding him toward her, Kale appeared at the end of the hall. His armor gleamed red in the dim light. His mask now fully shattered, revealing a face carved with rage. "So this is your savior," Kale said coldly. "Half human, half failure." Mason leveled his weapon, its barrel glowing like a star. "Let her go," he said. Kale drew his blade, energy crackling along its edge. "Couldn't take her," he whispered. They clashed, light against shadow. Human against alien, Kale's strength was immense, each strike sending shockwaves through the corridor. Mason countered with pure energy, his body glowing brighter with every hit. The ship itself trembled from the power of their battle. Kale slashed across Mason's chest. Sparks flew, light burst from the wound. But the pain didn't stop him. It fueled him. He grabbed Kale's arm and unleashed a blast point blank. The explosion threw them both across the room. When the smoke cleared, Kale rose slowly. Armor cracked and bleeding light. "You can't kill me," he said. "I am Dominion." Mason stood, breathing hard. "Then I'll end the Dominion with you," he said. He charged again, fists glowing brighter than any weapon. Their collision shattered the floor beneath them. Energy surged through the ship. Alarms blaring, Kale fell to one knee, his eyes wide with shock. "You don't even know what you are," he hissed. Mason's voice was calm. "I know enough." He turned and ran toward the central chamber. The doors burst open, revealing Illyra still chained in light. She looked up, weak but smiling. "I knew you'd find me," she whispered. Mason raised his hand. The chains shattered like glass. He caught her as she fell. Her touch was cold but alive. "I'm here," he said, "and I'm not leaving without you." Behind them, Kale's voice echoed once more. "You think this ends with me? You've woken something far worse." Mason turned, confused. "What are you talking about?" Kale laughed weakly, blood and light spilling from his mouth. "The thing under your world, the ancient core, it felt your bond," he said. "And now it wants it." The floor shook violently. A deep rumble rolled through the ship. Outside, the stars flickered as a dark shape moved beneath Earth's surface. Illyra's eyes widened in horror. "The Ancient One," she whispered. "The First Dominion?" "The origin of all." Mason looked down through the glass panels at the planet below. Something massive was rising. Bigger than any ship, older than any empire. A heartbeat that echoed through space itself. Illyra gripped his hand tightly, her voice trembling. "Mason," she said, "if that thing reaches the surface, everything will end." He stared at the growing shadow, his chest burning with light. "Then we stop it," he said. Her silver eyes met his, filled with fear and love. "Together," she whispered. He nodded, his blue glow merging with hers until their light became one. The ship trembled as energy built beneath them. Below, the planet's crust cracked, revealing the monstrous form of the ancient Dominion core. Its voice rolled through the stars like thunder. "I am awakened. Mason and Alira stood side by side as the sky itself began to burn. The final war had begun. The ship shook violently as Mason and Alira stared through the glass floor. Below them, the crust of earth split open like a wound. From the depths, a colossal shape rose, not made of flesh or metal, but both it glowed with rivers of fire and shadow. Stretching like veins across its body, its voice was not a sound, but a vibration that rattled through their bones. "I am the first," it thundered. "I am the origin. The dominion that came before all." Mason gritted his teeth, covering his ears, though it made no difference. The voice spoke inside his mind, ancient and endless. Alira stumbled, holding her head. "It's speaking to us," she gasped. To the bond, the ship's alarm screamed as gravity shifted. Cale's body was gone, swallowed by light. The entire Dominion fleet trembled as the ancient core's energy reached them. Ships cracked apart, sucked into the rising vortex of fire. Mason grabbed Alira's arm, pulling her toward the hangar bay. "We have to get off this ship." She looked up at him, her silver eyes wide. "It's too late. It's drawing everything into itself." Outside, the horizon burned. Cities and oceans twisted upward into the sky as if the planet itself were breaking apart. Mason felt the pull, like invisible hands trying to drag his soul from his body. The bond between him and Alira flared painfully. He felt her fear, her heartbeat racing in sync with his. "Hold on," he shouted. "We're not done yet." They reached the flight deck, through shattered windows. The ancient core loomed above the planet like a god made of storm. It was the size of a continent, its face made of light and stone. It opened its eyes, two burning suns that stared directly at them. "You carry the Forbidden's bond," the voice said, echoing through the air, the child of human and dominion. The spark that must be erased. Mason aimed his rifle up at the window, even though he knew it was useless. "Yeah," he said, his voice trembling with rage. "Come and try." The ancient core raised one of its arms. A beam of red and gold light shot down from the clouds, hitting the ship like the hammer of a god. Metal melted, fire spread through the corridors. Mason shielded Alira as debris fell around them. They ran through smoke and flame, heading for the open hangar doors. Alira stumbled, her energy flickering. Her glow had weakened, her strength almost gone. "I can't," she whispered. "I gave too much to heal you." Mason caught her before she fell, holding her tightly. "Then take it back," he said. She looked up at him, confused. "What?" "My energy," he said. "If the bond works both ways, take what you need." She shook her head. "It will kill you." He smiled faintly. "Then it's a good trade," before she could argue. He pressed his hand to her chest. The light flared violently. Alira screamed as his energy flowed into her. Mason's body burned from the inside, veins glowing like molten glass. He dropped to one knee, gasping, but Alira's light returned, brighter and sharper than ever. Her eyes blazed silver, her hair flowing like liquid light. "Mason, stop!" she cried. He forced a grin. Too late, the ship cracked apart completely. They leapt through the flames, carried by a burst of her energy. The wreck exploded behind them as they soared into open sky. Alira's wings of light spread wide, carrying them above the burning world. Below, the ancient Dominion core rose higher, pulling everything into its gravity. Mason clung to her as wind and fire tore at them. "What do we do?" He shouted. Her voice came fierce and clear. "We end the cycle." She looked at him with eyes that held both love and war. "The First Dominion feeds on life force," she said. "But if we merge completely, we can turn the bond into a weapon, pure light." Mason nodded, even though he understood only part of it. "Then let's finish this," he said. They flew straight toward the heart of the storm. The ancient core raised its arms again, trying to crush them in a field of dark gravity. Alira screamed as she pushed through the force. Her light flickering, Mason felt his bones shatter. His vision blur, but he kept going. One thought burning in his mind: protect her. They reached the glowing center. A vast eye of light that pulsed like a heartbeat. A voice echoed inside their minds, deep and mocking. You think your love can destroy what began before the stars? Mason shouted into the light. No, but it can end you. He wrapped his arms around Alira as the energy between them flared one last time. Their bond erupted into pure white fire. The explosion was silent, a wave of light that swept across the planet. It tore through the ancient core, splitting its body into fragments of fire and shadow. The Dominion ships turned to ash in orbit. The earth below cracked and glowed, then began to heal. The light faded. Mason and Alira floated in silence, surrounded by drifting pieces of metal and crystal. Her eyes slowly opened. He was still holding her. But his glow was fading fast. Mason, she whispered. You're disappearing. He smiled weakly. Guess the bond found its limit. Tears fell from her eyes, turning into sparks before they hit the air. You gave everything, she said. He touched her cheek, his voice soft. I gave it to you. The world below shimmered with dawn light for the first time in years. The war was over, but the price was heavy. As his body dissolved into light, she tried to hold him. I won't forget you, she said. Her voice breaking, he smiled faintly, his outline almost gone. You don't have to, he whispered. I'll always be part of you now. Then he was gone. His light merged with hers, and for a moment, the entire sky glowed blue and silver. Silence fell. The ancient core was destroyed. The Dominion fleet scattered. Alira drifted above the quiet earth, the bond still pulsing softly in her chest. Mason, she whispered into the wind. No answer came, only the faint echo of his heartbeat within her. She looked down at the recovering world. Green light began to spread across the land, healing what the war had broken. Humans would rebuild, she thought. And somewhere, somehow, he would see it too. But deep beneath the ground, where the ancient core once slept, a single fragment of blue light remained, still beating, still alive. Silence covered the world once more. The fires had gone out, the air was calm, and the sky glowed with a pale light, for the first time in generations. The earth was quiet, where cities once burned. Now only ruins remained, but beneath that silence, something new was beginning. Alira stood on a cliff above the ocean. The wind carried the smell of salt and rain. She had been there for days, watching the horizon where the sun rose every morning. Each dawn felt like a whisper from him. The bond still pulsed faintly in her chest, soft but alive, sometimes when the wind was still. She could almost hear his voice, just a whisper, faint, familiar. I told you I'd die again, she smiled sadly, looking down at the glowing lines on her hands. They were the same color as his once had been, blue and silver. She closed her eyes and spoke softly to the waves. You saved my world and yours, her voice trembled. But you saved me most of all. Behind her, the world was changing. Plants began to grow again between the cracks of broken metal. The air shimmered with strange light, part human technology, part Dominion energy. Together they formed something new, something alive. Alira had begun to rebuild, not as a ruler or a princess, but as a bridge between two species. Humans who survived the war came out from the ruins. They were afraid at first, but when they saw her eyes, they stopped running. They saw hope. She led them to the remains of Project Dawn. The underground base that had once created weapons now served as a place to grow life. Human engineers worked beside Dominion healers. Children ran through the tunnels that once echoed with screams. The bond Mason had died for became a symbol, a story passed among survivors. The tale of a soldier who defied two empires to save one life, and in doing so, saved both worlds. But peace never stayed silent for long. Far below the new city, deep under the earth, something stirred. A fragment of blue light still pulsed in the shadows. It was small, gentle, but full of energy. When the wind outside shifted, the pulse grew stronger. A voice echoed softly through the dark. Not loud, not human, but familiar. Alira. She woke that night with her heart racing. The glow in her hands pulsed faster than before. She stood, eyes wide, feeling the energy calling her from the depths. The same rhythm, the same heartbeat she once knew. She followed the sound through the tunnels, her light guiding her way. The path led her to the old chamber where Mason had first awakened. It was quiet, untouched since the war, but at the center of the room floated a faint orb of light. Blue and white, it flickered weakly, but it was alive. Alira's breath caught in her throat. She stepped closer, whispering, "Mason?" The light pulsed brighter. Her tears shimmered as she reached out her hand. The orb moved closer, brushing against her palm, and in that moment, she felt it, the warmth, the presence, the voice inside her mind. "I told you. I'm not gone." She fell to her knees, her hands trembling. "You came back," she whispered. The light pulsed again, steady now. "Not all of me," his voice said gently, "but enough." Her tears fell freely, glowing as they touched the floor. "I missed you," she said softly. "I know," he replied, "but you did what I couldn't. You built something worth living for." The chamber glowed brighter. The orb of light began to rise. "You are part of both worlds now," he said. "The bond doesn't end. It becomes something new." She reached out again, but her hand passed through the light. It didn't fade. It spread. The entire room began to shine. The walls humming with life. Outside, the new city's power grids surged back to life. The night sky filled with shimmering streams of energy. The humans and the Dominion survivors looked up as beams of light connected across the sky. It looked like veins of living starlight stretching from one horizon to another. The planet itself seemed to breathe again. Alira stepped out of the tunnels, her eyes glowing brighter than ever. She looked toward the heavens and smiled. "Thank you," she whispered. The voice in her heart answered softly. Always, years passed, the bond became a legend. Humans told stories of the soldier who gave his life to unite two races. Dominion children sang songs of the princess who loved beyond the laws of her kind. And somewhere, beyond time and stars, a small blue light drifted through the void, carrying the last echo of his heartbeat. Still searching, still watching, still protecting one night, under the new world's glowing sky, a shooting star streaked across the horizon. Alira looked up and whispered his name again, and for a heartbeat, the world around her glowed brighter, as if answering. The bond between them had never truly ended. It had become the pulse of a new age. The bridge between human courage and alien light, the spark that would never fade. The last light of two hearts that had saved the universe together